What's happening, guys? Pro here at VIP Outdoors, and we had an amazing opportunity to get out and do some albacore tuna fishing off of our north coast here. We went out of the Columbia River bar to be specific there. We had some blue water come in close enough there to be able to get out on the water. It's been years. I shouldn't say it's been years, but I think we left the dock at 3:30 in the morning, and that Columbia River is so busy with traffic. There's just an unsettling feeling about creeping out through the night over that bar, even though you have a forecasted good ocean with a great tide to be able to do it at. There's just a bit of an uncertainty in doing that. So make sure if you do that, what I always suggest is buddy boating, to where two boats are traveling together, two or three, to get out to those grounds, just to take care of each other a little bit. But man, once we got there, it was awesome. It was such a fun time. As soon as we got there, it was game on. We were just on them, and we thought it was gonna be like this banner day. The bite just kind of fizzled out on us, and then it kind of turned into onesie twosies, picking them off. I was gonna salmon fish with some buddies the next day, so I wasn't able to stay out all day, but we did get a good amount of tuna that we were very happy with. One of the things I want to talk about in particular is how we got them today. Without a doubt, our swim bait bite was the best bite we had. Now, in hindsight, I'm not going to put all the blame on my brother-in-law, but I'm going to put some of the blame on my brother-in-law, because I had him build our clone leaders, and we got out there and I'm like, on our clone leaders, our hook on our clone was actually dangling behind the clone itself. So he didn't suck it up nice and tight. So not entirely his fault. Maybe I should give him better instruction. But nonetheless, our clone bite and our cedar plug bite was pretty non-existent. But once we had our clones out, we put our swim baits in this middle position. And as soon as we put our swim baits out, we had a double. So to me, that told you got to listen to the fish, right? At the end of the day, if you listen to the fish, they tell you what they want. So get those two fish in, get the rods out again. The next one to go is another swim bait. Instantly, I decided those clones got to come out, and we had 4 swim baits fishing. Having a spread when you're tuna fishing having an appropriate spread is very, very important. The most important reason is, number one, you don't want a bunch of tangles, because once you start tangling stuff, it is an absolute nightmare. So we want to discuss with you today the spread that we run, the lengths behind the boat, how we trolled our swim baits to successfully catch albacore tuna. What I want to do is I want to start with our spread. When you talk about the spread on your boat, a very, very common spread is that you have one rod nice and high out the back, okay? And for me, that's about 125 feet to 150 feet, sometimes 200 feet, depending on how bad you're messing with your buddy. But that's my cedar plug back there. That cedar plug gets strung way out there. I don't usually go 200. That just when the tuna bite's super hot and you want to make your buddy reel in a really long ways, that's how we mess with them. So anyways, but that's usually out there about 125 feet. My back corner rods, okay, on the stern, both of those are out there 100 feet. These middle rods right here coming out the side, those are 75 feet. And in some cases, we'll fish the bow rods usually at around 50 feet. Now, how do we know those certain lengths? So what I do is I have 2 different rod and reel setups. Okay, both of them are a Talica from Shimano. This one is the Talica 12. The other one is the Talica 16, which is a little bit larger size. The Talica 16, I spool with 80-pound test line. Okay, usually Power Pro. I'm a really big Power Pro fan when it comes to this stuff. And then I put 50-pound top shot on there, and I put 100 feet of 50-pound top shot on all of my Talica 16s. So what happens when that line is coming out, when I get to that knot, that transition knot between my mono and my braid, I know I have 100 feet of line out. So on my top rod that's going 125, I let that knot go about 25 to 50 feet past. My back corner rods that are 100 feet out, I let that knot get just past the tip. So just past the tip, I got 100 feet. Now my swim bait rods, I rig them a little bit differently, okay? My swim bait rods, I use a 75-foot top shot, okay? And that is 50-pound fluorocarbon, whereas my other ones are not fluorocarbon because I'm putting a swivel, a cover, like a hoochie cover, and then I'm using a 5.5 200-pound leader to my clone, because those fish are not line shy with those clones. But the closer I get to the boat, the more natural presentation I want, especially with the swim baits. And some days, not all the days, but some days that could be all the difference in the world. So in this case, let me show you exactly how we do that. So this is the leader that I really like using. It's a high seas fluorocarbon. Again, this is 50-pound leader, and this is 50 yards. So 50 yards is about 150 feet. You split that in half, that's 75 feet, right? So having these leaders on board is really nice. What I do in my driveway is I'll actually stretch it out and get my exact 75 feet. But again, I use two different sizes of reels to be able to determine which one's which. And then on these swim baits with this 50-pound, I direct tie to my swim bait. I don't put that bumper in there. So I'm going to show you the knot I use to connect my braided line, which is 80-pound, to my fluorocarbon. I have 75 feet stretched out perfectly in the driveway connected to the fence to the end of this. So we have our main line and we have our tag end. Main line, tag end. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a loop, fold it down. I'm going to make sure when I hold this, the main line is facing my body and the tag end is away from me. And again, that is on my 50 pounds. So just like that. Tag end away from me, leader towards me. This is my braided line. My braided line, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it down to where my main line goes up toward my rod and reel. Tag end is now facing the tag end of my fluorocarbon. I'm going to pinch it all together right in the middle. With my right hand, with this braid, I'm going to make one loop around and hold it with this index finger for now. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch hands, make sure you keep that fluorocarbon facing you, the main line. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to continue to pinch it with the other hand. I'm going to take my tag end and I'm going to wrap it going towards the loop a dozen times. Very important that you don't overlap any of those loops right there. Make sure none of them are overlapped. Now what you have two sides of your loop. The loop that is attached to your leader, and then the half of the loop that's attached to your tag end. And you have your braided line. The reason it's important to keep that leader side, top shot side towards you is because now what you're going to do is you're going to lay your braid along the side of that. And with this tag end, you're going to go around those two and through the loop 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. Should have done a longer tag end. That's okay. So that's what it looks like. All right. Okay, you have 12 wraps around both lines. Then you have 4 wraps around the half of the loop that goes down to your leader. Okay, get it wet. Just like so. Because I have that short tag end, I'm going to have to bite it with my teeth. And when I do that, I'm going to pull this. This is that loop side. See that? I'm pulling that loop side. It kind of shortens that up. Okay, I pull the main leader on the bottom. I'm kind of pulling them all against each other. As soon as one gets loopy, give it a little snug it up. Okay, and last little bit. Pull on all 4 sides. Look how nice that's binding down. Okay, that's absolutely awesome. That's exactly what we want. Keep pulling, keep pulling. Okay, and there is your knot. Just like so. Take a look at that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my scissors. I'm going to trim the braided side. Now my fluorocarbon side, if you have a little tag end on the top, it's not that big of a deal. On this bottom side, this tag end, I'm going to clip it nice and close. Beautiful part about this knot is that this is a very favorable knot when you're trolling. The reason is because when you're letting this out, it's a controlled environment when you're letting it out. So is there a little tag end on this bottom that could catch your eyelets when it's going out? Yeah. But remember, this knot is generally past the top eyelet. So when a fish grabs it and goes, there's not going to be a tag end hitting your guides on the way out of your rod, potentially causing damage to your guides. But when this knot is on the outside of the tip of your rod, now when you reel it in, this top part is smooth as it gets reeled in just like that into your reel. Okay. That's why I like that knot in particular there. Okay. Absolutely great knot, super strong. I do use this same knot when we cast for tuna with our spinning reels. I never put this knot on a bait caster or level line because of that tag end. When you go to cast, when that tag end hits a guide, it's going to stop the momentum of the line going out, and stopping the momentum and the spool continues to roll, you will have a professional back spool, which we all know as a rat's nest or a bird nest, right? So that's why I use this line when I'm either trolling or casting with a spinning reel. So now that I have that on there, spool that onto my reel here. And again, I got it tied onto the fence over there for some tension. So I'm going to get out of the boat and just reel her tight. All right, so check this out real quick. I want to show you something about these reels. Okay, this is why we use this type of reel when we're out albacore fishing. We have an open, strike, and full. Okay, the strike, when I put this on strike, that's where I have my, when I'm actually in the act of trolling, that's where I put this lever. Okay, I always turn on the clicker because there's a lot of times, especially with the top rod, that you don't see the bite, you're going to hear the bite. Okay. You got to make sure that drag there is about right to be able to set the hook, but also be able to take drag because they do hit it very aggressively at high speeds. Okay. So now notice I keep tension in the rod, and now I'm going to collect all that line and making sure that when I spool this, that I evenly guide that line onto the spool nice and tight. It's got to be nice and tight while you're doing it. All right. So now I got 75 feet of line on my Talica 12 for trolling my swim baits. I know exactly how far my gear is back there, so I'm not guessing. Okay. You could go direct. I know a lot of guys that go direct braid, and you could put like bobber stops on your line. That's very effective, but when you tangle a bunch of braid together, it sucks. Okay. So having these top shots, those little leaders, spools of leader on the boat is absolutely great. Okay. Let's jump back up there in the boat, and we're talking about how we attach this and the swim baits we have for albacore tuna fishing. Our swim baits go hand in hand with our jig heads that we manufacture. We have 3 different styles of jig heads. We have our 1 ounce jig head. We have our 1.5 ounce jig head. And we have our 2.5 ounce jig head. This 2.5 ounce jig head is what we are using for albacore, for trolling. What's really nice about this jig head that we design, number one, the premium hook we put on there is a BKK hook. Okay, it's a 2 times strong. That thing is a beast of a hook. It will not bend out on you. Okay. Second is this custom collar that we did on these swim baits. Hold on to your swim bait very, very well. Number 3, the design of this jig head allows you to troll swim baits within your clones. Generally speaking, swim baits you troll a little bit slower. Clones you troll a little bit faster. That clone, you're looking at about 7 to 7.5 miles an hour. This jig head stays in the water very, very nicely with those clones. Okay. So those are the 3 styles of jig heads that we manufacture. 2.5 for trolling, the 1.5, and 1 for casting. We'll get into the details here in a second, but let's talk about the trolling aspect. With that 2.5 ounce jig head, we made each jig head to match our swim baits. The 3 swim baits that we make are a 3.5 inch, a 4.5 inch, and a 5.5 inch. That 5.5 inch swim bait matches up very, very well to that 2.5 ounce jig head. But for trolling albacore at high speeds, this tail puts out so much action that it is going to start to control the jig head. So what I suggest and prefer is going down to the 4.5-inch swim bait with the 2.5-inch head. Then what happens, and you could tell we use this one on the trip, it's all mangled and tangled. What happens now, the action of the tail is very rapid and aggressive, but it does not manipulate the jig head and the movement of the overall lure. So we want the jig head controlling where our lure is and the swim bait itself to just create enough action to stimulate that bite. And that 4.5-inch with the 2.5-ounce troller is absolutely perfect for albacore. That is what I highly suggest. You will find with that 5.5-inch, it could kick your gear out of the water a little bit when you're trolling those bigger swim baits, okay? Unless you're going super slow. When we tie this on, we're going to use what's called a Rapala knot. I have another video, and there's plenty of videos online of how to tie a Rapala knot. But all you do is you tie an overhand loop or an overhand knot, come through the eye, back the same direction, up, and then we create the loop size that we want. Maybe I'm struggling this morning, too much coffee. Okay, I want a nice kind of smaller loop on there, so I suck it down like yay. Only going to wrap it 3 times with this heavy fluorocarbon. Go back down through the loop, and then back up through the loop that's around the twist. Get it wet, cinch it down, there you have your Rapala knot. And the reason that Rapala knot's important when you're trolling a swim bait is, you know, this is not going to waddle side to side. This is going to stay perfectly straight. If you direct tie, then you're not in line, and boat angle and rod angle is influencing your swim bait, okay? But because this line is probably coming in at an angle of sort, somehow, some way, that loop does not manipulate the way your swim bait's going to track. If you tighten that knot down, when your line's this way, it's probably going to track this way, okay? If it's up forward and it's a steep rod angle, it's probably going to tip it this way. So again, this allows the bait, the jig head to troll in the flatness, I guess, that it was designed to troll, okay? So that's why we use that Rapala knot right there, okay? When we thread our 4.5-inch swim bait, you're going to notice it's going to look a little goofy. You're like, man, that's a big jig head for that swim bait. That's okay. I promise you that's okay. The way I make sure we get them just right is I get the depth of the swim bait. I see where that swim bait's going to pop out. I prick the center of the back. Our swim baits are designed to be as realistic as possible, so it has a rounded back. We don't have a flat back on ours, okay? You got the back fin on there. We have a bottom fin. Okay, we have this little back fin. All those little things when you're talking about a big-eyed fish like a tuna can make the difference. Now, when I thread this, I know where my hook has to come out. My hook has to come out at that prick or above. It comes out or underneath that, and it's going to create a curve in my bait. Excuse me. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the bait when I'm threading it, and I'm going to make sure that hook is right down the spine. Okay, I'm going to look at it, make sure it's right in the middle of the bait, thread it pushing straight down, and start curving it right out towards that little prick I have. Just like so. You have your 4.5-inch trolling swim bait just like so. Okay, and this is absolutely nice, guys. Again, you control this 7 to 7.5 miles an hour and not have a problem with it jumping out of the water. The jig head itself is very, very nice. But what's also makes a difference with your bait staying in the water is the type of rod that you're using. We spoke about the reel being the Talica 12s, the Talica 16s. These are in the A model, the kind of newer model, the Talica A's. But second, the rod that we're using to be able to do that. These rods got to be able to stand up to a fish hitting that lure at 20 to 30 miles an hour. That's all there's to it. Number two, they have to have a soft enough tip that when you have the kind of bumpier seas, that the rod tip is flexing, keeping your gear in the water. When you have too stiff of a rod, on a lot of days it'll work, but on the days that are choppy and your boat's coming up and down, you're going to have to manipulate your rod angle and your distances to keep your gear in the water with a stiffer rod. This rod in particular, made by Talon, does a heck of a job of keeping your gear in the water. Okay, this is the 70-4 from Talon. Okay, it's rated 20 to 60. I was so tickled with this rod. This is the first time I've used a Talon rod out in the salt water, and you could see some of these bites, and you could see how the rod loads up and just absorbs that bite very, very well, but it keeps that lighter gear in the water throughout your entire troll at high speed. So very well designed. I highly suggest this 70-4 by Talon. So great rod, guys. That is how we set up our swim baits, for trolling, when trolling for albacore tuna. I store them just like that when we roll out, and we're good to go. Now, on the spinning side of things, we have our 1.5 ounce swim bait. Okay, this one's in the shad jig head. Again, this is a 4.5 incher. Okay, 4.5 incher. The only difference here, this right here is the new Solstice MQ 4000. I do spool that with 50-pound super slick in the blue, and then I do tie on a top shot. I tie that top shot on the same exact way that I tied that one on because of the larger guides. This is 40-pound floral, so not nearly as thick as that 50-pound, and so I'm able to cast it really, really nicely. And with these bigger guides in the spinning combo, you're going to be able to get that line through there without too much disturbance. But this Solstice MQ 4000, I want to chat about it just for a second. It's new from Daiwa. 26 pounds of drag it has. That's absolutely amazing. 26 pounds of drag is unfreaking real for a 4,000 size spool. It has the nice big round handle on there. We got this one attached to this one is the Talon. This is our Osprey series, and this one's a 6'6" in the 2 power. Okay, they also have the 4 power. I'm gonna get a set of 4 powers as well, but this one is very nice. There's plenty of backbone on it. I like these shorter 6.5 foot rods for casting when I'm tuna fishing, opposed to like 7 footers maybe, because and you could probably even go with the 6. A lot of times when you're tuna fishing, again, you have so much gear coming out of the boat, different lines. You have to be able to sometimes sneak a cast in somewhere, and having that shorter rod means you need less space to cast. And so, again, that 6.5 foot rod, very, very nice with the Solstice MQ 4000. Absolutely great combo there. Now, what jig heads, we spoke briefly there about the 2 jig heads we have, one of them being the 1.5 ounce. Just like so. Triangle jig head. Again, we got our custom collar on there that holds those swim baits very nicely. We have one size smaller hook, but again, 2 times strong. Just great overall product. Let's be honest, guys. We don't provide anything that's not good quality product. Okay. We've been around for a long time now, and we have never produced a product that is less than something I would personally use, and my standards are pretty high. And the second one we got, the second casting jig head we have, this is actually a 1 ounce. And we made this 1 ounce be very versatile. We made it in more of a round, kind of tapered head. You see that tapered head? So it's almost a combination between a shad jig head and a round bullet jig head. This one's really nice for a couple different applications. We did create it for jetty guys using our 6-inch curl tail, which is something we'll talk about a different day. Tuna, the amount of small bait fish that were in their bellies, and even in the coho, I mean, the average bait fish was this long. All right, so sometimes that size presentation is absolutely everything. So you take a 3.5 inch swim bait like this one. This is our natural herring color. I mean, tell me that doesn't look like a herring out there. Okay, that thing's absolutely beautiful, right? This is our 1 incher, our 1 ouncer. Same thing. Come down, make my little mark right in the middle of the back, right in the middle of the fish. Come down the spine. I always look at the side, make sure that hook's coming down the lateral line. Come out right through there. Nice little presentation there. Check that out. Okay, that 1 ounce jig head, you could throw it a long ways with those rods. Those 6.5 foot rods, you could toss that a long ways. Great overall presentation when tuna are getting finicky. Okay, we have a good quality plastic that allows for a lot of movement within the tails. You are on the trolling aspect. You can expect to get 2 or 3 fish out of 4.5 inch swim bait when you're trolling them. They do hit them hard. So the last thing I'll say about the trolling application is color. How does color play into tuna? I'm still learning, just the way you guys are. You know, when it comes to the salmon world and color and contrast and metals, you know, I created a theory on that years and years ago, and we've spent years perfecting it. And I am very confident in that I could tell you which color combos and contrast metal colors to use in certain fisheries to provide success. I have that much experience in it. Within the tuna world, I don't have as much experience, especially the swim bait, since we started just manufacturing these. What we did notice on this trip, and this seems to be pretty common with some of the information out there, parallels some of the information we have out there, is everything comes down to kind of dark and light and dark and bright. These are two of our swim baits. They look very comparable. This is what I would say a dark, and this is a light. This is bloody tuna. This is tan tuna. Dark and light, dark and bright. Okay, this is a bright. This is a dark. Okay, so dark, light, and bright. Those are the 3 categories that I would put tuna presentations into, is dark, light, or bright. In the experience, which again is not a ton of experience as a tuna fisherman, but I am a good fisherman, what we've experienced pretty consistently is that when we have a dark scenario, like we left at 3:30 in the morning, so when we got there in the morning, it was dark. And our 2 best swim baits were dark lures. Those dark lures, number 1 being our bloody tuna, and our second one was our purple reaper. So the purple reaper and the bloody tuna, hands down, were our best lures starting off the day. As the light became more prevalent and the bite became more particular, we noticed that the bites we had on purple reaper were just short strikes. Just like salmon fishing, if you get a short strike that went from a rod being buried, there's something about it they like, and there's something about it they don't like. So to me, they obviously still like the presentation, but they didn't exactly like what was being presented. So I don't want to make any drastic moves at this time. What I want to do is I want to make some subtle changes. Those subtle changes for us is we went from this dark in a dark overcast to a light once that light came up. And we ended the day with 4 of these swim baits running opposed to dark swim baits running, and that made all the difference in the world. We ended our days on doubles. You know, we ended on a double and left. In hindsight, I wish we would have trolled for another hour. We probably could have picked up another 10 or so, but that's what it took, is that color difference. So when it comes to our bright colors, I have never had a lot of success trolling our bright colors. Doesn't mean it doesn't work. And I can honestly say, I don't know that I've ever trolled tuna. I'm just lucky this way, I guess. I've never trolled for tuna when the sun's like out and it's super hot outside and there's not a cloud in the sky. I always pick the days that are cloudy and go. But what I have noticed is these bright colors, when I present them in a casting scenario, do very well, opposed to trolling them. That's usually the middle of the day when it's a brighter atmosphere out. I gravitate towards a brighter color, but I do leave the super bright colors on my casting rods opposed to my trolling rods. Okay. If you've seen or had any different experience, feel free to comment down below. This again, guys, is just my experience I'm sharing with you. I invite you to share your experience with us in a positive way, and that way we could learn from each other, right? So it's a big blue ocean. Tuna, albacore tuna is a great natural resource. Again, we're just trying to provide information and gear to make your time out on the water a little bit more successful. I hope you guys enjoy this video. You got any questions, comments, drop them down below, and we cannot wait to see you on the water.